pretty radical departure.
Yeah, and it shows the danger of when you have a faith, when you have Christianity sort of collide with politics. If you just go back a decade ago and you would have painted the portrait of Donald Trump and you would have told the evangelical community that this is the guy that you're going to be wholeheartedly embracing, people would have said there's no way in hell that could possibly happen. And even Trump in private often remarks with astonishment that Christians are so much his base. Like, his numbers are higher and more intense among evangelical Christians than George Bush's were. And a lot of that, it's all, like, even look at that refugee question. It's because they're viewing that question through a political lens. They see refugees and they think it's a fight over the wall or over immigration. And all of those steps now have become political, and Trump knows this, and he's put a lot of thought into how do I get even higher turnout among evangelical Christians, because he knows he has so much credibility built up with them, largely because of the court, a little bit because of his language, but a lot about the court. A lot of evangelical Christians outside of the cities feel under attack. They disagree with where the country's going on abortion, and they look at what Trump is doing in terms of the two justices he's put on the court, what he said about abortion, and for whatever reason, they then suspend disbelief on a lot of other topics that in the past I don't think a lot of Christians would have tolerated. And by the way, there's still a lot of Christians that don't tolerate this. I think it's a big segment of the older part of the evangelical community.
So, Mike, it's important as we look at that number, 68% saying that there's no responsibility to take care of these immigrants as they cross into the United States, that there are church groups doing incredible work down at the border, evangelical groups down at the border, and have been for many, many years. There are evangelicals who put out an open letter against the Muslim ban. There are people, as Jim said, standing up in the religious community. But that is a political question. That 68% is a defense of Donald Trump, a man many of them have said, look, we elected a president, not a saint, a guy who would stand up for us.
Yeah, Willie, and I think there are many people, I'd include myself in the many people, who know that there are multiple issues on the table in the course of this campaign for the presidency. There is the border, there is, the future of NATO, there is the Middle East and things like that. But I think the core of the campaign is what this one man, has done to alter our country. We now have the acceptance of abnormality as a huge underlying issue in this campaign and in everyday American life. I mean, the acceptance of cruelty, the acceptance of misogyny, the acceptance of corruption, both political and moral. And each candidate has an obligation, I would think, to address these issues in some form or fashion, because what happens is that it has altered both the reality of America and the image of America around the world.
And what a bitter, bitter irony that you have a political movement, that you now have a subset of the church, Steve Kornacki, that is so obsessed with the appointment of federal judges over the treatment of young children, worried about the unborn, and seemingly dismissing how children are treated, how infants are treated, how toddlers are treated, how these children along the border are being abused. But there is no doubt, and I know this as someone who grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, there is no doubt that the single motivating factor overriding almost every other factor is the appointment of federal judges. Mm-hmm. So the appointment of federal judges now, Trump, actually what Jesus writes about in Matthew 25, talks about in the Gospels, about taking care of the poor, the disadvantaged, the hungry, the thirsty.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fascinating for all the reasons